It is Monday, the 4th of March, 2024. This is episode 12, and we're going to kick the show off with discussing last night's AEW pay-per-view, Revolution, which aired from Greensboro, North Carolina, and featured Sting's final match. I don't know that I can say enough positive things about this pay-per-view. I think there's probably a couple of small negative ones, but overall, I think this, for me, was probably the best AEW pay-per-view, not just the actual show, but the build to the show in like a long time. I mean, what a spectacular in-ring action. The storytelling was great. Like, there was so much great stuff that happened on the show. I feel like we're going to kick it off by discussing what we liked and what we didn't like. Trish, what did you think about Revolution?
I pretty much echo a lot of that, really. I do think it was the strongest build since perhaps Revolution in 2020, which is still, I always think of that as the flagship, the standard bearer of builds to a pay-per-view. But, this one featured so many more people. It had just some incredible action. If you want that straight up kind of, I don't know, like 5-star chaser, should we call it? You've got... That's what I say, right? You've got the Ospreay Kesta match. If you want, something a little more technical with a little bit more emotion, you had Danielson Kingston stuff. You had some great heel stuff with Christian, and then later with Hangman. You had a little bit of everything, and then what you get at the end. So like Sting, Darby, and the Bucks. That's like I think I've said this to you in person actually at shows. I always feel like I don't think it's no such secret that I am, as I get older, a lot more cynical about wrestling. And I think it's hard not to be, because the more you see or the more you experience, it's kind of like you lose some of that joy kind of feeling that you get out of it. And you kind of chase that feeling. You chase that feeling of like when you see a match or something happens where you get so emotionally invested that you end up with like this high that you just take into like the rest of the day. And like, it's like a buzz. And I always chase that buzz. I said that to you in Toronto. I absolutely chase that buzz, that feeling where wrestling can put you in that different place where you don't think about the rest of your life and you don't think about anything else. You just think about, that was fucking great. And that main event, that was the first time I felt that in so long, where I just went, this is just everything I want it to be. It's everything it should have been. It's fucking perfect. And I just, I always want more of that feeling. So we're never gonna run down something that makes you feel like that. It's incredible.
The whole lead up to the whole match too. I mean, I think that's an important part of it. The way that they built the match, obviously the promos, some of this obviously impacted by Sting's father passing away and sort of limiting his availability. We had a hiccup here or there, but I think I started crying when the movie started playing in the movie theater before Sting came out. And I think I stopped because I was so excited about the match itself and then started crying again at the end. To me, it felt really, really special because there are so many sad endings in wrestling. And I think you could just name them and name them and name them. And there's not as many happy endings. And it feels like Sting got his happy ending. And by extension, the audience also did. Like, we got to celebrate that incredibly special moment with him. And so much of the way that they set this up was perfect. Bringing the Suns back in and having them dressed up the way they were was just tremendous. It was also incredibly effective within the setup of the match itself, because you didn't have the actual participants setting up tables and doing all that, furniture moving, as they like to call it. You could focus on the Young Bucks and Sting and Darby. You didn't have to worry about, okay, now we've got to take 20 minutes while Pac sets up a table and 3 ladders, which is the one thing I keep thinking about from that. It was like, okay, those guys are going to take care of it and we can focus on these guys doing something else. It was just, the layout was great. It was like, I feel like when I say this is going to come off the wrong way, but like, it was kind of a mess of a match, but like not in a negative way. Not that the match didn't do what it needed to do or that there were missed spots or bad things happened, but it was just like a whole lot of just insanity in the best AEW way possible. If you could ask for, like, if you could say this match needs to be an encapsulation of Sting's time in AEW, that was that match. Like, I could talk about this for hours.
Like, when it comes to laying out matches, the Bucks, but Nick in particular, is a complete and utter master.
Yeah.
And there is no one better in that company at doing it. I don't think there is. You know,
No.
I don't think it's a secret why so many of the matches that they're involved in, whether it be 10-mans, whether it be tag team matches, whether it be, you know, even when Nick's done singles, there's a reason why, you know, so many of these matches are just not only, you know, some of the best in reaction, but the most emotional. And he knows exactly when to pick the spots, exactly when to do the comebacks, exactly when to do the big spots, how much time to let things breathe. He's you know, and he won't take credit for it. He won't. But he's an incredible structure of matches. And with this one, you know, they did so many perfect spots. Yeah, the stuff with his sons, I think in the end, that was why he kind of had to win. Once you tell that story, then the kind of the baby face has to go over. And it was the right call. You know, for a long time, I thought maybe not because, you know, there's this thing, the Bucks don't need it. Well, I don't know about that. I think, you know, the Bucks have had their name put through hell for the last, you know, 2 years, and they've been down cycle for 3 now. Since 2021. So I wasn't always on the thing of the Bucks don't need it, but it depends what you do after. So they need to be, you know, top of that division in this tournament. And I know people are like, oh, they're going to do FTR and Moxley, Claudio again. Nice. But
we'll get into that in a little bit. I think, but
yeah, I'm not so sure on that because, you know, some of Mox's promos are kind of he's doing the Elite of the Lead stuff, and there's some stuff going on with Jack Perry and Shota Umino in New Japan that you know can play in. There happens to be a show in Toronto, California in June for New Japan. So you know, there's enough kind of things to say that maybe not this, but. Yeah, what they did for this match in terms of structuring was just fantastic. You know, using Ricky Steamboat in the spots that maybe they would have previously used Ric Flair, knowing that he couldn't do that. They did the I'm sorry, I love you thing and then kick Flair in the face, which is something I've been talking about for about 3 months. Rather than, you know, and then did the same thing with Sting, and he did the straight, like, you know, kind of like firing it up. And yeah, it was just perfect. And I think that, you know, Sting's made it very clear why he picked them. Yeah. And he's made it very clear that he has an immense amount of respect for them. And, you know, he doesn't need to come out and say, you know, like, I don't give a fuck what anybody else says. You know, I respect these guys. Everything they do is top notch behind the scenes. Because no one else in that company has been brave enough to say it, other than maybe John Moxley, for, you know, the past 3 years. So he didn't need to come out and do that, but it shows you that respect he has. And also, you know, why wouldn't he pick the Bucks? I just think this is hilarious. People are like, why would he pick the Bucks? Like, this guy was an alternative. This guy was the last one of the WCW guys to go to WWE. He was the guy that always put people over in WCW. He was never selfish, always tried to do what was best for the company, even when they trod all over him. And it's like, you know, California guy, it just absolutely makes sense that it would be the Bucks, you know, and he's been a tag team wrestler for the whole time, and the Bucks are the ones that really pushed, you know, we want this tag division to be the best. Yep. We want a tag team main event, and there is absolutely no way that it shouldn't have been the Bucks in the first tag team main event, and the fact that it was in this match with Sting and Darby and something that's going to be, you know, there's not many things that are actually memorable. There's lots of things that are great. You know, you see lots of matches and people go, that was a great match, that was a great match. But there are very few moments in wrestling that are memorable. And this one was truly memorable. So, you know, credit to all 4 of them, but especially, you know, the Bucks for laying that out because, you know, Sting's looked a little bit rough in the last year and a half. You know, especially we saw it at Forbidden Door. He was struggling compared to Forbidden Door the year previously in the 6-man. So, yeah, to get what they did out of him and to do all the callbacks and involve so many things and have proper heel heat. Jesus Christ.
The entire audience chanting, fuck the Young Bucks, which I don't think you would have had you had. Well, that's just what it boils down to, right? Like, you say, okay, well, why would it be the Young Bucks? Who else is going to do that program? And who else is going to do that match, right? I don't think there's a single other tag team singles wrestlers put together that could have been so uniquely genius in that, in the way that they set it up, just the program, the way they set up everything about it, it just worked out really, really well. And I just think, like, you know, it was also, for all that, again, Sting has this tremendous history, so much time in WCW, but it was also a very uniquely AEW match. Like, it was very much felt like it was an encapsulation of what AEW is, and that, to me, including anybody else in it, it would have felt a little bit off, I guess would be the way to say it, you know? Like, it just was, it just felt right. The people that were involved, like how the match was set up, everything about it felt right. And I don't know that you could have changed anything else. And I was definitely on the fence about Sting and Darby going over. I think I was even arguing late last week that they should lose. But I how can you argue with that? Like, that's one of those things where it's like, if you do it well, I'll totally say I was completely wrong. And I was completely wrong on that. Them winning, it was perfect. Like everything about that was just, I don't know. The words are failing me because it was just that good.
That's one of them where you also take into account that Sting has been incredibly unselfish during his entire career.
Yes.
This is not a Hulk Hogan guy that comes in, demands money, demands to be put over, or Kevin Nash holding up shows. This was a guy that was completely unselfish, not just in WCW, when he went to TNA as well. And, he always put his family first too.
Yes.
And, when you look at AEW, the embodiment of, and this is a company with, which has had noticeable issues with putting people over, but the embodiment of people that do put people over are the elite. Right. And I do think, it's as much as this is a complete look back on like Sting's career and they just did a fantastic job, I do think it's reminded people the importance of the elite this week. And especially you think about if they had signed elsewhere last year when they were kind of being pushed out of company, would there be an Okada?
Right.
Would this match be what it was? Absolutely not. There was nobody else that could have done this. And the funny thing was, it was the most old school heat and angle and build up and match. And yes, they used plunder, but you used plunder to protect somebody of Sting's age and, to kind of get around his limitations. So absolutely no issues with using plunder. But it's like the most old school thing you could do. And all their criticism and all the things that he bashed them for. And then they deliver that. And it was just, and it wasn't like, oh, we're just going to boo you because of the whole CM Punk. No, we're channeling fuck the Young Bucks because we're buying into your characters and you're playing off it and you're killing it. It's, all the people that said it was going to be shit back in November, fuck you.
Oh my God. Listen, I absolutely had my moments, Trish. We've talked about this where I was like, I don't know about this. I'm not sure about this from a gimmick perspective. Is this going to work?
It's the funniest thing.
Stupid ass idiot me. Like, how could I have ever done it? And like, I had this down even before, like, we set up our podcast notes last week, and I have been so delighted with this gimmick change and the whole EVP thing that I wrote in the podcast notes, the Young Bucks are geniuses, even before the freaking match, right? Like, just absolutely, like, the way they've done this whole setup with the freaking suits and the plane and they're such little fucking assholes, and it's so beautiful, and there's so much they can do with it that they haven't even touched, right? Like, so obviously a lot of it was built around Sting's final match, but the EVP thing can go so many heel places that it's just like, again, we talk about creativity. We talk about people setting themselves up to do something different, to do something new and unique. Like, again, I dare you to find somebody after all these years that are better than the Young Bucks at like, okay, we've got to like, let's insert some storytelling devices that are going to make this more interesting than just, hey, we're the best wrestlers in the world. Like,
Yeah, we're just going to pull kind of funny faces and look at each other while we're in submissions.
Right. Trish, we're not getting to that point yet.
No. Yeah, they are much, and it's this thing, you've had 2 years of kind of publicly bashing them on top of the people that have always kind of not bought into them or, made a gimmick or making money out of hating them. And that's the thing, that shows you how successful they are, that people make money out of hating them.
Right.
But that's often lost, when people say, oh, they don't make money. Well, they're making plenty of people money by the look of it to me. But yeah, no, you can take this gimmick, you run with it. You run with the tag division, do it. The tag division needs it.
The tag division needs it. Fucking desperately.
It needed it last year. And they are the best elevators of talent as well. They're the one thing that they do that no other tag team and not a lot of singles guys can do in AEW as well, is they can elevate anybody. They can get the best out of anybody. They can structure a match so nobody looks bad. And that's how many times have we seen it where people are like, oh, that team looks great. And then you realize they're just in there with the Young Bucks.